everyone.
Hello, Galen. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
So we want to thank everyone for joining us. This is both of our first times in Georgia, and I have to say I have worked in many industries, and I have never at all worked in dance, which is why I'm definitely the most equipped person to ask you honest questions today about dance in our lives. So I was hoping to talk about collaborations with you. And I was wondering if you could give us a story or two to start about some collaborations you've had in the past and how they maybe changed the way you work or kind of brought something new to your process.
Um, Oddly enough, so that's some of the people that I've worked with. There's lots of celebrities and artists on there, but actually the people that have taught me the most are my students. So I teach intensives globally in Europe, in the States, um, and I have people from every age. So there's people, there's a woman named Paula who's 67 when she took my first intensive. She's 72 now. She was a marine biologist in Hawaii and wanted to pursue dance at the age of 67 and came to LA to take an intensive and is pursuing a dance career and works all the time. Silver hair, Asian lady. She'll be in commercials like dancing for a prescription drug commercial, killing it. And she pole dances like what at this age? It's incredible. So people like her, there's a computer scientist who lives in Italy who flew to London to take one of my intensives, and he loves tap dance, he loves dance as a hobby, and it's something that makes him feel like himself. And there are just people that I meet that I would never get that exposure just working in the entertainment industry. So yeah, there's all kinds of, every intensive I do, they're very small and intimate. Sometimes I teach master classes where there's 200 people in the class, but the intensives I hold are under 30 people, so I really get to know every single person. So every session I hold, it completely changes how I work when I go to my next music video because I'm exploring dance in a much more pure sense in those sessions. So they teach me so much.
So I want to talk about choreography, and I want to talk about the creative process. So if you could you just walk us through this process, which begins with either getting the call or getting the sort of the idea to understanding the kind of parameters that would exist, be it TV, film, music video, and sort of how that works in terms of transferring the ideas to a performance to other people's bodies?
That's it's a really good question because choreography, if you think of a film set, a music video set, a commercial set, most of the people on that set have either, if you're a director, there is school for directing, there's a union for directing, there's a lot more mentorship in directing. For every single role that's on a set, most of them are unionized and most of them have elder people that kind of pass the information down. Choreographers are the only people that are not unionized on a set in terms of like department heads. And we all basically run our ships our own ways. There's very little information passed down linearly, so my process is completely different from another choreographer, which is completely different from another choreographer, and I actually think it's not a good thing. But my process is, whether it's a film or music video or I teach classes, those last clips were from classes I have that are like super popular on YouTube, and so I get to do whatever I want to do when I do those. But no matter what, the song is like the #1 thing for me. So I'll get the song, and if it's a music video, it's really exciting because usually it's a song that's not out yet. So like I did a music video for Usher earlier this year, and so I get to hear the music before anybody else does, and it's so fun. So you really have a clean slate. For me, I listen to the music. I'm from LA, so I'm in my car a lot, and that's where I do a lot of brainstorming. While I'm driving, I'm just like looping the song over and over and over. And 90% of the ideas are just in here, and then I'll prop my phone up and I'll film myself so that I don't have to remember it, because you'll have an idea as you're going to the grocery store, and it's like, oh, this would be really cool. So I'll prop my phone up, I record myself, and then when I get back home, I can look at the video I made, and I purposely kind of do it that way so that when I look back at it, a bit of time has passed and I have some fresh eyes on it, and I can go, oh, that's really cool. I can go, that's not it, that is trash. But I film myself, and then I physically get up and try to lightly do the thing that's in my head. by this point, I kind of know what's possible in my head physically. So the physicality of it is mostly figuring out if the timing makes sense, but I'm really mining a song for everything I can mine it for. So it's on, I mean, any given project I do, like that Usher video, that song is in my head when I eat, sleep, breathe. It's just there. So that's the number one thing for me is music. But if you ask another choreographer, there are some choreographers who they will literally choreograph to a different song. They'll freestyle and they'll go, let me just try that to the song I'm actually supposed to be choreographing to. But it's much, much different for me. I really customize my pieces for the exact song. You can't do that choreography to a different song because it's so specifically nuanced to the song that I'm choreographing.
And kind of expanding on that a little bit, you know, I think something that I'm really interested in is obviously when you're dealing with professional dancers, they have sort of a very, you know, broad degree of skill. When you're choreographing for individual artists, be them pop or hip hop or something in that space, they have a different skill set. So in terms of thinking about the choreography, maybe even a specific example, you're also having to sort of compose for the body of someone else who might have limited implications but has to look great or has to be able to perform it live. How does this factor in from sort of a more practical standpoint into the way that something goes from being kind of a concept around a song to like an executed performance?
There's a lot of, the choreography is as much about what you make up as it is how you teach it to a person. So when you're teaching a recording artist, it's much different than teaching an actor. Or like LeBron James, you know, we did a commercial and he was in between really important games and they had like 10 minutes for him to come in and do the commercial. So when he comes in, I've got to prep in a completely different way. I mean, dance is like not his wheelhouse at all compared to an Usher or a J-Lo. So you're really having to psychologically figure out how can I communicate this information in this person's language. Is anybody in here a dancer? Yeah, nice. Is anybody in here a choreographer out of those? Nice, nice, nice. So there's many, has anybody in here ever taken a dance class? There we go. So you are dancers. Once a dancer, always a dancer. Actually, that makes me curious. So you've taken dance classes. Did anybody like hate the dance class?
Honest.
Well, usually what happens is people love dance. They love to participate in dance, but it's extremely intimidating for a lot of people. Is anybody intimidated by dance? Yeah. It brings out insecurities, or you think, I would love to, but I can't. Oh, there's no way I could. I have a family, I have a job. It's this like other thing, which is a whole different story. But in terms of how you communicate things to people, the way dance is taught is a huge element in how you will connect to it. How your teacher teaches you is a big element of it. So sometimes dance is taught in counts, so you're going 5, 6, 7, 8, 1 and 2, a 3 and 4, and some people are like, no counts, don't give me a number, give me a feeling, give me a vibe, a goom ga, a doom goom ga, and a shoom ba, and so you've got to know how to communicate to people in that way. But artistically, you're trying to figure out what's going to look good on this person's body. What's going to look good on LeBron James compared to J-Lo, compared to Justin Bieber. And so it's a completely, that's why working with, in the intensives, working with a 67-year-old marine biologist and a 12-year-old in Poland and professional dancers in LA, any person can walk in front of me and I can assess what will make them look fantastic, what will make them feel fantastic, what their strengths are, what the strengths of their facial expression are. I'm really, really big on facial expression, which very few choreographers focus on. And I'm really good at bringing out facial expression in any person, whether you're, again, a J-Lo or a 12-year-old. So it's many, you kind of use the term when we've talked before about like 4-dimensional chess. It's like 20-dimensional chess happening of all of these things that are not even what are the cool moves I have to come up with. It's all this other work that's happening, and then you present the hopefully cool moves that you've come up with. So there's a lot of psychology in it, and in the context of what everybody can learn from dance. When you're the person with the movement being put on you, there's so much that you learn about yourself. When I'm teaching the intensives, I can tell by how a person is approaching the movement I give them, how they are outside of the dance studio. What stuff makes them tick, what makes them excited, how they are around their friends, what they tend to do with music outside of a dance context, meaning if you were at a wedding and a song came on, you'd be dancing like this, but in a dance studio, you're super serious. What your insecurities are, when you're in your head, what will get you out of your head, all of those things are a part of the calculation. And so in the context of what you can learn from it, if you ever, for anybody in here that's like, I love dance, but it's this other thing, or no, I couldn't, or I've always wanted to take a dance class, but I don't want to make a fool of myself, or there's a million different kind of things that you have going on in your head. There's so much to learn from it, aside from learning the 5, 6, 7, 8, because most people think there's a barrier to entry. I can't remember the moves, or I don't look good doing the moves, or I don't have the technique, I don't have the vocabulary. Or you might not have the resources. There's no classes near me, I can't afford classes, there's no teachers I want to take from. But what I do is I help people figure out their relationship with dance, a way to do it in your bedroom alone with Spotify if you want to. And you can really redefine what dance means to you, and it holds a mirror up to you in a way that no other art form does. It's one of the only art forms that's made up of your body, which is, most people think of that as a detriment. So I'm sure there are people who are of a senior age in here who are probably thinking, I can't dance because I can't kick my head, and there's no way I could move my body like that. But I encourage people to think, your material's changing. If you're a painter, you've got your paint. If you're a sculptor, you've got your clay. As a dancer, your material's changing literally every day, let alone year to year or decade to decade. So I right now can't do a fraction of what I did when I was 18, but I'm really curious about what I can do now with my limited range of motion compared to when I was young. So there's a lot of dance lives and breathes with you as your body ages, and it's a beautiful thing to be able to figure out what your material, quote unquote, can do as you get older, as opposed to thinking of it as a limitation. I got on a tangent there, but I think it's important to make sure that you know that dance can be a part of your life as well. If you're sitting here, you've got some sort of interest in it. And so I want to make sure I add that piece in there.
I mean, I think this is actually a really interesting place that the conversation's already gone, because this started with me asking about choreography, and now we're talking about how dance is something that we can all have a practice with. And I don't necessarily know if that was where I immediately kind of thought we would start, right? Because in my mind, I feel like choreography is a study, and then it's rehearsed, and by the time it makes its way to you, it's removed from all these levels of the feeling and the experience. So I guess I want to talk a little bit about that sort of transference and that sort of transitioning. So something that I asked you about that I think is so interesting is that when TikTok came into being, it is now redefining elections, it's redefining the way we think, but really the first thing to truly break on TikTok was dance. Mm-hmm. And why dance? Why do you think that dance was the thing that really made, and it's still defined this way, it's a dance app.
Yeah.
What about dance was so powerful that it made this app sort of an undeniable part of our culture?
I mean, that's I'll give my guess on it. I don't know what the definitive answer is, but does anybody in here watch dance on TikTok? Oh, I am sure you do. Do you like watching dance on TikTok? Yeah.
Do you see dance on TikTok?
Yeah, does anybody else see it but you scroll past it? If I'm being honest, actually, what just popped into my head, this is me just making a guess, it's hot people wearing hot clothes, like looking at you in the eye vertically, so you see their full body usually. They're looking into the lens, so they're kind of looking at you. And it's a very specific type of dancer that really kind of pops off on TikTok, that really goes viral. And they all kind of look the same kind of way, and it's like eye candy. There's something that's like, you want more of it. Maybe you secretly want to learn it, even if deep down you're like, I don't want to learn this. And yeah, it's just eye candy. There's something about watching a body in motion like that. But if you picture a TikTok dancer doing that same thing, but like facing diagonally, it's not the same thing. It's that they're like confronting you, and you see them really clear, really close up. And that's completely different than consuming dance in the background of a music video. But also, I just like can't overlook the fact that they are usually hot people. I don't. That's just
Well,
a
but
cynical thing.
but this is great because this is how do you feel about seeing, hot people or not, what does it mean to see a dancer not in the background, not in a costume, not in some polished position, but somehow presented as the subject, maybe doing something which is either choreographed or maybe deeply personal, something which is an incomplete work, but maybe comes from like a very human place. Like, as someone who's spent your life as a dancer and then a choreographer, what does it mean to see these bodies in a different way, with a different focal angle? You know,
Yeah.
like what is that experience for you like, and how do you interpret it?
It's really interesting because there's also the YouTube side of it. Like YouTube is kind of the opposite of that, where YouTube put dancers in the forefront, where we weren't dancing behind an artist and we started to be known for just being dancers. But there's usually multiple bodies in a YouTube dance video, and it's usually much more highly choreographed. But they're two sides of the same coin, which is that you're watching an unobstructed view of dance, and there's no barrier to entry. You don't have to buy tickets to go to the ballet to watch that. It's coming to you, and most people just aren't exposed to dance that much in that form, and it's bite-sized, so you get to just consume a bit of it and then go on, and you don't have to sit through the Nutcracker for 3 hours. So again, this is like totally a guess. I think in hindsight, it's like, why did that thing blow up? But I don't even know if it was on purpose that it was that blew up. But it's just such a visual, looking at your phone, it's a visual medium, and dance is a visual medium, and to have it bite-sized like that with the eye candy, I think it's aspirational too. Like, so many people started dancing because of seeing it, even on TikTok, definitely on YouTube, definitely on Instagram. There are people who had that questioning of, I would love to, but no, I couldn't. And then they see it all day, every day, and they go, maybe I can, because they're also seeing people's stories. There's storytelling in the Instagram or in the TikTok where it's like, I learned this routine from a music video, and here I am doing it. And we didn't have that context before. So you get to really see someone that maybe inspires you to move, because you see in their story that they maybe came back from an injury, or they're whatever. The 67-year-old that came to my intensive, she's got a huge following now because people are going, oh my gosh, I'm 50 and I thought I was too old to do this, and she's doing it, so now I can do it. But I don't know that there's like a singular answer to it.
So, but I think I want to talk about kind of, you embrace technology as a really important part of really finding an audience, doing some of your more intensive work. I think that authorship is a really interesting idea. And as a choreographer, in some ways you're known for your moves. In some way you're also just known as being a choreographer. How do you navigate this space through your career when, to some extent, the moment you've released a move into the world, it's been done, or it's on an artist whose name is synonymous with it? Like, how does your experience of authorship from a personal place, an artistic place, and a professional place, how do you navigate this?
That's a really interesting question, because I have a unique perspective on it. So when I said that choreographers aren't unionized, we also don't own our work when we're working with artists or on films, so we are work for hire, which sucks because we don't own the choreography that we do for them. So if you think of like the person who choreographed Thriller, I mean, everybody knows something from Thriller. They know the general gist of it, or the Macarena, or Gangnam Style, or Single Ladies, right? There's not ownership in the traditional industry sense, but I'm one of 2 people in LA who owns copyright of my work, and I'm very passionate about that and really more knowledgeable than the average bear on it. The YouTube videos that I make, I own the choreography because I'm not work for hire. I'm doing it myself. And not many people that create work on social media copyright their choreography. Most people don't even know you can copyright choreography. But I have about 20 copyrights, and I enforce them, and it's very important to me, because there are choreographers who have made iconic works over decades, and they're not reaping any benefits from anything that they've done. So they might live in an apartment, but they choreographed like 10 of the most iconic music videos or films of all time, because they don't get any royalties on it because they don't own it. So the ownership for me, I know that when I'm doing a music video, and this is something that we're working on changing, but that change is extremely, extremely difficult. So right now, we just know that we are work for hire on these industry things, and when I see it go to J-Lo, I know that she has hired me to do that thing, and she owns it. And that's a tough pill to swallow, but I don't know if that's getting to, I think it's a much more like practical answer than an emotional answer, but that's what I think about when I think of ownership and doing industry work and seeing my work be put on someone. You have no idea what influence a choreographer has on an artist. We're not just telling them the moves to do. If you think of a Janet Jackson or a Britney Spears or a Justin Timberlake, the choreographers they had with them made their whole essence, from what they're wearing to the way they look in the camera to what their eyes are doing to when they're doing ballads and they're just standing there with a microphone. You would never know that they're highly choreographed on when they put their hand on the mic and when they look up into the spotlight. It's like you're creating an entire persona. So it's kind of devastating to know that there's something about dance and choreography that doesn't get the same recognition as, even these days, the glam team. Like, the hair and makeup people are making bank and the choreographers are not. So we're a very, very unique niche little party in the grand cog of the wheel of the entertainment industry.
Seems like in excellence, you almost erase, the treads of your own work. Mm-hmm. So there's an apocryphal quote, which is rarely attributed well and changes a little bit. It goes, writing about art is like dancing about architecture. But here's what I asked for. Where do moves come from? You have an idea, you listen to a song, you set up your camera. What are your influences in finding moves?
Yeah, I think we're so removed from what dance actually is. Dance has existed since the beginning of man. Music videos have existed for like 2 seconds. It's really wild that our industry is so young. We've existed since the 80s because there weren't music videos before then, which is partly why there's not that generational information passed down, because there's only 2 generations above me. So we're a very young industry. But dance has existed since the beginning of time to storytell, to pass down information, to pass down family history, to pass down information about hunting, about food. That's where it came from. And those people were not thinking, what moves do I come up? They're trying to convey, like, we're gonna go this way and hunt the hawk over there, and they're making up the moves to tell the story. And that's an innate thing. I think even in this room, for those of you who are not dancers, if a song comes on again, if you were at a wedding, your body wants to do something. And usually that breakdown happens when we become adults, because if a baby hears music, they're usually bouncing. They're not going like, oh gosh, but I'm gonna look silly, or but I haven't taken a choreography class yet. What count is that bounce on? So as a kid, maybe you even danced around as a kid, and if you look at kids, they usually have much less inhibition. So they're not trying to think of where my move's gonna come from. Your body wants to move, I promise you. Even if you don't think it does, it really wants to move. And that's where the mirror is reflected back on yourself. If you're thinking right now, my body doesn't wanna move, that means you've got a lot of blockage. You have a lot of mental strain going, I couldn't, or I don't like this, or I don't have that bone in me, is covering up way, way, way deep down in your gut your innate want and need to move. So for me, that innate feeling is in me, but it's also coupled with, I have consumed everything I've worked since I was 7 in the entertainment industry. I have a vast, vast library of every movie musical scene, every music video, like, even my peers they're kind of like, well, you've got everything in your brain. Because I'll go, oh, that looks like when Paula Abdul did the American Music Awards. Or I'll reference things. It's all in here. What I like to do is really push things through my own lens. Again, kind of related to the copyright conversation. I really, really like to make sure I am iterating on things in my own way. And I really don't like to directly pull references, even if it's just in my brain. So I'm taking this vast, vast, vast library of every style. I do more styles than your average choreographer. So I've got tap, I've got hip hop, I've got heels, I've got jazz, ballet, capoeira, whatever. Everything that I've studied my entire life is all in this repository. So when I hear that Usher song and they go, we want Afro beats, because Afro beats is super popular right now, I can pull from like the gigantic library in my head, and all I need is the song, and then that library does its work internally and it comes out. But that's because, it is a craft, and you only get to that place if you, for decades, done this thing. Otherwise, you're listening to the song going, what move, you're genuinely trying to think of the move. What move do I do? What move do I do? So it's a combination of it being innate and having the information to pull from being so consumed in it.
So in that answer, you're using dance and movement interchangeably. And I think this is a really important distinction in terms of trying to sort of go back to our audience in terms of, do we dance? Do we watch dance? Do we think about dance? Because I think to some extent, intentional movement is a part of your practice and a part of our lives. Even, for example, when we were waiting to come up here, you turned to me, you said, well, you should walk out first and you should walk to this chair and then I'll sit down. And looking back on it, I'm like, was I being choreographed just now? Is that? So, totally. I guess I'm really interested now, because we were gonna take some questions, but I think it would be fun at the end, if we can, when you dance for yourself, do you dance a different way? When you think about movement on a daily basis, do you think about it in a different way? Is there a kind of sort of style and approach to just articulation that is something that we might be able to start imagining in our own life, whether it's brushing the teeth or moving from room to room or opening a doorknob? Because I would love to imagine that we all have like a dance practice that we don't know about, but we might be able to try ourselves before we record it, post it, perform it. Is there room for dance for all of us?
Yeah, I mean, that's part of what I was alluding to earlier, is like there is no barrier to entry, and usually it's just the fear of looking dumb. Really, it's you can do it in those daily tasks. I love that you said that. Brushing your teeth, opening the doorknob. The thing that one of the elements that makes it dance is setting it to music. So we walked out and you sat and I sat, but if I had said, you're gonna walk 1, 2, 3, you sit on 5, 6, 7, I sit on 1, then all of a sudden we've choreographed it, because it makes it repeatable, because we can go back to 1 and do that same thing again on the exact same timing. Music is what makes dance incredibly fun. So if you are just thinking in your head, if you didn't even need a song playing, if you're opening the door and you're thinking, can you give me a song that you like right now?
I only work in music for 20 years.
Like, come on, music manager.
Let's go with Thriller.
Thriller?
You mentioned it earlier.
So this is so silly. If you were going, tell me what's the theme of Thriller? What are they all pretending to be?
They're coming back from the dead.
From the dead. So they're like zombies. So like this hand that's opening the doorknob all of a sudden can be like, shoo, right? It's like a zombie hand coming out, and if in your head you're going, 'cause this is Thriller, and you walk through the door, it's like that's dance all of a sudden. And that can be happening in your own head. It's so much fun, and that, when I say there's no barrier to entry, I'm not gonna even ask you to show your hands right now, because I can tell that you're embarrassed to even show your feelings about dance, so I won't even put you on the spot like that. But this is not something that technically anyone in this room cannot do. You all can technically do that movement, right? I'm not even gonna have you raise your hands. Just in your head, you're like, yes, I am capable of doing that movement. The only thing that changes it is most people don't believe in their ideas and they don't have agency over their body. So I have lots of confidence in my ideas, so I'm not afraid of looking dumb, going, 'cause this is Thriller, and walk through. I don't care if I look dumb. Most people would go, I want to do the zombie hand, but I don't know if that's the right thing, and they pull away from their ideas right at the 7 out of 10 mark instead of going 10 out of 10. So they might if we were in a class and I said, I want you to do this for me, I guarantee you, Jake, you'd be like, I think this, right?
That uncertainty would be true, yes.
So it's about having agency over your body, which is super important. I have a lot of students who have undergone trauma. If you've undergone any physical trauma, or there's something in your life that has made you feel that I could never do that, gaining back that sense of agency of going zombie hand. And your hands and your face are the two things that tell me if you have conviction in your ideas. Because even professional dancers, they might go like this. And in their head, they're like, I'm doing a zombie hand. And I'm like, that's not a zombie hand. And their face might be like their eyes are darting because they're thinking. And that's telling me you're not believing in your idea right now. So all that's to say, I don't imagine you're all gonna go home and be opening doors like that, but you have the physical capability and you have the idea capability of incorporating dance into your life in so many ways. I can give more of an example.
Before you sit down, if possible, Could you show us some other ways to open a door?
Someone else give me a song that you like right now. Anyone?
Can we hear a prompt for a song? Like a...
What? What'd you say, Joe? Lunch? So like, lunch is not a song, but the concept of lunch. You're hungry, right? Is that what you're saying?
Let's stay in the 80s. Purple Rain.
Purple Rain. Oh my gosh. Never meant to... What's the first line? Never meant to cause you any trouble. Never meant to cause you any trouble. So like if I think of a doorknob here, my storytelling is gonna be like, I never meant to cause you any trouble, because I'm being really delicate and I'm like, I don't want to hurt you. I didn't mean to hurt you. So I'm just gonna gently do this. And then I might go, I never meant to cause you any pain. On the word pain, I might like grab it and hold it like a Band-Aid or like a piece of gauze that's like wrapping around it so that I can push it really gently and then walk through. Does that make sense for everyone? But it requires no technical ability. I'm not kicking my head. I'm not doing pirouettes. All I'm doing is believing in an idea and physically representing that idea. Is that making sense for everyone?
Absolutely. And Galen, before you sit down, please, and we take more questions, I just think because it's so interesting now seeing this sort of, I think this is such a great way to sort of understand your work. Would you be able to open the door as some of the dancer pop stars you've choreographed before to help us sort of see the variation of an Usher or a Janet or a Bieber? Can we just get some door opening moments if possible?
So J-Lo might be, so her song that I choreographed is called Can't Get Enough. So it's like, you know, I can't get enough. I love that, a bad word. I'm not gonna say it because they're children. Stuff. You know, I can't get enough. I love that stuff. You know, I can't get enough. I love that stuff. So she might be, J-Lo's always got a heel on, as you know. She might like, and her hair is always blowing, so she might like look, and then she might go, you know, I can't get enough, and she would push the door open and walk, because she's like, I'm in charge. She's always the dominant person, right? She's always in charge. If there's a guy she's interacting with, she's grabbing them and pulling him. She's never like the victim. So she might go, I can't get enough, and push the door, because she's like, that's enough of you, door. Get out of my way. I'm trying to enter the room.
Yeah.
And he might be like, hey, I do the necklace thing, you know? So like, Usher might like break it down and go like, there's always a little like foot thing before he does something, so he might be like, and if there was a camera here, he would do his magical Usher look into the camera where he's like, and like you just fall in love with him. Boom, and he might like turn it, and then he would do his like gliding, and I was doing his, you know when he throws his necklace? He throws like a necklace that has the U of Usher, and he would throw it, and it would go around his neck. So everybody's different. They've all got their own persona. But now if I hadn't done the Thriller one, or the Purple Rain one, you'd be like, I would never be able to walk through the door as a dancer, but now you have just as much value as a J-Lo or an Usher, and you would go, who am I? Like, maybe you're funny and quirky, and you're like, hey, is it okay if I come in? Right? Even if you're shy and you think dance isn't a part of your life, you could enter like that. Is that clear for everyone? Kinda?
I think it would be great to take a few questions.
Sure.
I don't know if there's a microphone that's going to circulate. Okay.
Hello, and thank you for this amazing performance. I might ask a slightly boring question for some people maybe, but I still want to hear your views. So when we are seeing, and I think, at least personally, dancing as a storytelling, dancing especially that comes from certain cultural connotations, and there's a lot of history behind it. And when then other people and other cultures are learning this dance in different time and different context, there's always this risk of cultural misappropriation. I want to ask you about swing dance, Lindy Hop, Charleston, and this whole movement, which started obviously in Afro-American community with jazz music, obviously together with it, And we know the story, right? How they started, it's about resistance and everything. But then what you see happening with Hollywood, obviously, completely whitewashing the whole thing, and then this whole thing moving to Europe, and we see what happened in Europe pre-World War, but also after World War. I want to know what's today's views about swing dance and Lindy Hop here. I mean, how it can be used in a way that it's not whitewashed, because, I mean, in Georgia, not a lot of people know, for instance, about it, about African-American culture. A lot of people like jazz, but not many people know where it comes from in a way, like, so that how can we also take it as our own in a way that we don't whitewash it in a way, you see, because it's very, very far culturally, but also I see a lot of links as like resistance movements and everything. So I would like to hear your views about that.
I have so much respect for you for even knowing that information. There are so many Americans who don't even know that information. So I just really appreciate you even like caring about the question and knowing that history. So Lindy Hop, swing, the Charleston, tap dance, so many things came out of oppression for Black people in America, and were really important and then appropriated. If you even think of tap dance, Gene Kelly, Fred Astaire, the people in the old movie musicals completely appropriated it from the Black people that they were dancing around in vaudeville. So there's a lot of history like that, but we don't see, how do I put this? We don't fault non-Black people for tap dancing today. What usually, I'm not gonna speak on behalf of the entire community, but with street dance and with social dances, usually what the kind of litmus test is, are you aware of the history? And if you've studied the history, it's okay if you do the dance. So like in a modern day sense, it might even be breaking. Breaking's gonna be in the Olympics, and there are gonna be a lot of people who are exposed to breaking who know nothing about the history of breaking. And people in the street dance community are like, as long as they're aware of where it came from, then we want you to study it. That's the other thing, is like, you want these things to be big because they're amazing art forms. We want people to do them, but you just need to know where it came from. So that requires that the teachers, and I've mentioned before that the person who teaches you dance is just as important as the dance itself, that as long as there's information being said during the teaching of the movement that helps you understand. So like I have tap classes online, and on the sign-up page, there's a button that goes to tap history so that you know what it's about before you take the classes. Because it's very difficult in every single class to do a brief discussion about how tap came from slavery. Like, you don't want to do that in every class. But as long as you're making sure that you're passing along the information in addition to the movement, that tends to be the bar that most of the people who came from those styles is asking. That's what they're asking of the people who are interested in the dance style.
Just to extend on that a little bit, and I asked you about this before, when you think on the performances that you remember that were seminal for you, thinking about both ones that hold up today, that were meaningful for you at the time, or reflected your introduction to different styles, schools, and cultures of dance, are there some that still stay with you now that would be worth kind of introducing to this audience if we wanted to go deeper on the subject?
Oh my gosh, there's so many, mostly from the old guard of things, from old movie musicals, old music videos, because there was so much time that they spent doing those things. So they're fantastic because they spent 3 months rehearsing, whereas for a music video that I do today, we get 2 days or maybe 5 days. Speaking of Lindy Hop, there's an amazing film called Hell's a Poppin' that shows Black people Lindy hopping, which you don't see often, and it is bonkers. It's incredible. You would think it's from today, and you would think it's CG. Like, you wouldn't know that human bodies can do that. It's in black and white, and it's amazing. Clearly, all of the old movie musicals with Gene Kelly and with Fred Astaire are incredible. I mean, like, one that's a more modern day pop performance is Paula Abdul doing the American Music Awards when she choreographed her own song as the opening number. That's an incredible one. Geez, I mean, it's kind of hard to pinpoint one. All of Michael Jackson's stuff is just like above and beyond what any artist is doing today, and choreographically was so special because he really pushed his choreographers to come up with the best of the best. Yeah, that's a random rambling.
Let's take another question, please. I saw you.
Oh, sorry. I'm interested in what this question is going to be because you're one of 2 people who said you took a dance class and you hated it.
No, because I love to dance, but I just don't like the restrictions of having to the 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
So you talked about, I don't know if it's not copywriting or your moves and so forth. And so I'm just wondering what that involves, because when I think of dances, like Africa has many great dances like Angola Kizomba and all of these things that people are just doing it in the street. And talk about appropriation, right? It's not just a color thing, it's also a geographical thing. And so, so all of these great dances that are, just amazing, is that at risk of being expropriated and copyrighted so that they won't even be able to do their own?
No. That is such an important question that most times when the copyright debate comes up, a lot of people who are a lot of people worry that there won't be freedom in dance because certain things will be copyrighted and then you can't do that thing. You can't copyright a social dance, and the movement that comes out of Africa is social dance. The way you copyright something, as with anything, as with a song or whatever, is you're establishing that you're the first person to have made that succession of movement, and there's no one else that can prove they did that before you. Social dance doesn't have one person that came up with the series of moves usually. It's social. So they're coming up with that movement in a group, and one person can't go, I did that first, and no one else can prove they did it before me. So if America wanted to appropriate, right now, because Afrobeats it's like cracking in the States. Everybody's about Afrobeats. All of the Amapiano movement is like in every music video, like the Usher video. But we could never say, I'm copywriting this move, because you could just watch all the thousands of videos on YouTube and go, but all these kids did it before, so you're not the originator of that move. So that's what you have to establish, is that you're the first one that did that move, the succession of movement. The moonwalk, he's not the first one that did it. The moonwalk is a social dance. He was taught that by street dancers. They literally he got in the room with street dancers and went, show me what's cool. Show me how to pop. Show me, and that, it wasn't called the moonwalk. He might have called it the moonwalk. It was called something else. But he can't prove that he's the first one that did it because there were tons of people that did it before him. Does that make sense?
Would you, I would do it, but I'm sitting down. Would you mind walking us through a few of your sort of signature moves that are, if you're comfortable? Maybe just one, but it would be also interesting to understand a couple of the component parts, which is, this is something that came from somewhere, this is something that came from somewhere, but put together, it is a signature composition. Okay,
so I'm gonna give you an example, but actually it's completely tied to what we're talking about in terms of ownership. There's one I was gonna do, but it's smoking a cigarette and there's kids and I don't wanna do that one, but that's probably the most popular one. So I did a routine called Human, that also was very popular on YouTube, and it's essentially, the song is like kind of Android-like. So when I heard it, I thought, wouldn't it be cool to do a dance where you're playing a robot that suddenly becomes human, and so like piece by piece you become, you're an android trying to pretend to be human. If you all wanted to pretend you're doing this, or just think about it in your head, because I know you're too embarrassed to try it, but your hand would like go out to the front like this, and every time you tick, your head would move. So you're like an android that's coming to life, and your face has to be a part of that. I know I told you about facial expression. If you were in your head, you'd be going like this. Do I look like a robot as much? Like if my eyes are glossed over, all of a sudden I'm like a robot, and then your hands go da da da, and I think of like the robot in the Jetsons, how like they don't have digits, so like if their hand is opening, it's just like as a claw. So I'm going ga ga ga, and then I'm gonna open up, and then I would go shh, and I go to my face, and then in the song she says breathing in and out. So I'd be like, what would a robot do if they were trying to inhale oxygen like a human? So they go. So it's like all that character work is happening in there. That's just one of the more memorable things from kind of my own personal work. And the interesting thing is, Dancing with the Stars, which is a very big show in America, they did a piece on the show to my song that I had my routine to and did this exact thing. And that's the kind of thing where I can go, I did that movement before anyone else did, this exact succession of moves. So I own that. Does that make sense? So that's it's not like I've got like a library of like my iconic movement, but that's something that's super story driven that again does not require technical knowledge of dance. You're just playing. It's all make-believe. You could have a 7-year-old do that and they would have fun doing that. So that's just an example. It's hard with only one hand free. So I'm like trying to show stuff, but I don't have both my hands.
Let's take another question, please. I saw your hand up before. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I want to ask you about the idea. You mentioned that, so you were visualizing the idea. And in the very, very beginning, you said that that idea, for example, of hunting was visualized by the group. So they had one common idea and they wanted with this dance to visualize that hunting. But now we have a group of different participants, the songwriters, the singer, so on and so on. And then that story behind that idea has individual understanding. And then you are the one who has to gather all this and make one common understanding. So I have maybe two questions. Who prevails in that? And how you kind of grab that very, very important part of it and visualize it. Thank you.
That's such a funny question. So yeah, there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen, and my job, I'm very respectful to the fact that I'm being hired to give them a service. So I tend to defer to, if I were an artist, I'd be like, but this is what I want. I know that's what you want, but I'm paying you to do this for me, so this is what I want. So I really defer to people while giving them lots of ideas. My strategy is, let's say it's J-Lo again. There's a part in her video where I wanted her to go, she like points and her head does this. She goes, with you, boy. And I wanted all the dancers' heads to also be swinging. So I did that. And she's like, I need to walk to the next scene. So I should be walking there. And in my head, I'm like, but that's not as cool. I want their heads like going like this. So then we figure out, okay, so when you walk, can you do your head with the walk? And then she'll be like, well, if I step that way, it feels awkward. So then we'll go, well, let's start with your head to the right first so that it feels good for you. So there's a lot of like, that's where the collaboration comes in, is how do we satisfy what the moment needs? And it depends on who you're working with. A director might go, no, I want this, and that's it, and there's no discussion. Or they might go, you have total free reign. The last film I just did, the director gave me total free reign. If it was something that story-wise needed to happen, I absolutely understand that, so I change it accordingly. But other than that, sometimes they'll go, here's the song, do you? And sometimes they really need something specific. So it really depends on the job. But like I said before, there's so much more to it than making up the moves, because in my private rehearsal space, I might be like, this is the shit, I love this. And then I think I'm done, but then it goes through many, many iterations. There might also be, this happens all the time. I might want this to happen, but the hair person is like, but her hair's in a ponytail, and if she does that, we see the ponytail swinging. Hair people have weigh-ins. The wardrobe people have things that maybe she can't go down on her knees because she's wearing too short of a skirt. So you have to be compromising all the time and problem solving all the time. I don't know if that answers the question. It depends on the project and who gets final say.
So I think it might be time for us all to learn to dance before we leave.
I'm excited. I know you're not, but you're gonna be.
So I was promised that we don't have to stand up or dance to learn to dance. But I guess the question is there something we can do as a group that will help us think more about choreography, movement, articulation, and something that maybe we can explore wherever we feel most comfortable exploring it?
Let me just give you a concept, and you can stay sitting if you want. If for whatever reason you feel like standing up to use your bottom half as well, you can. And even if you're too nervous to even use your hands and your head, just like picture. If you picture moving, it's pretty close to actually doing it. Your brain's still firing the same neurons. So one thing that I like to do with people is give you a prompt, and so you're gonna figure out your way of interpreting the prompt. So let's pretend that like you can see all of the atoms in the air around you, all these little particles and dots, and they're all around you 360. And you can manipulate those atoms however you want to. So you can carve through them, push them, you could flick them, you could blow them, anything you want to do like that. Is anybody picturing it in your head right now, or are you just watching me? Yay, good. Okay, so let's just try. I'm just gonna snap to keep time, and you're all just gonna like explore what that would be. And you can use your hand, you could use your tongue, you could be like, that's a tasty atom. You could smell it, anything you wanna do. Here we go. I'm gonna give you a 5, 6, 7, 8, and then I'm just gonna snap. 5, 6, 7, 8. Try, yes, good. Interesting, pause. So if I were teaching a class right now, I would go, 99% of you aren't believing your idea because you're not actually, when I demonstrated it, I was looking at what I was interacting with. For most of you, and you can think to yourself right now if this is you, you weren't looking at what you were interacting with. So just kind of think to yourself, is this me? Right? Raise your hand if that's you. Yeah? That means that you're not actually believing in the idea that you have. And that's the 7 out of 10 and then pulling back because you're like, I want to do this, but I don't want to commit because I'm just going to casually do this. But you're not getting the most out of dance if you stop at the 7 out of 10. And this is not we're going to film this and put it on YouTube after. It's not about the final product. It's about the experience of doing it in real time. Try it one more time. Just promise me you're going to, number one, take your time. These are called panic moves. I call them panic moves where you're just like, must move. Take your time, and that means if you took all of the counts to just look at one atom and flick it, that's a win, as opposed to 500 moves, but you're detached from the movement. 5, 6, 7, here we go. Yeah. Beautiful. Okay, so yes. Beautiful, Joe, that was so cool. So the second element that you can do if you were to take this home with you is adding music, like I said. So can someone give me one more song? Or Jake, you can give me one more song? I don't know that. I'll do, in the cab on the way here, I heard Yellow by Coldplay. Does everybody know? So I'm like, maybe you know that song. So if I were thinking of atoms all around me, and just off the cuff, if I'm thinking like, look at the stars, look how they shine for you, and everything you do. Like I'm gonna marry it to the music, because he's saying, you don't have to clap. He's saying, look at this, so I'm gonna look at the star, I'm gonna pull it out. I know a star has like light that comes out of it, and then he says shines for you, so I'm gonna push it out to you because the star shines for you. And then I'm thinking like the song's called Yellow, and then I see a yellow flower, I'm gonna smell the yellow flower that comes out of the no, I don't want to. It's okay, thank you though. But do you understand what I mean? The music is the thing that tells you what to do. So if you went home and you listened to Beyonce or Coldplay or a country song or a rock song, the lyrics and the tone of the music are going to tell you how to interact with those atoms. You might be like pissed at the atoms and like kicking them and doing whatever you want that's like mad at the atoms, or you might be like in love with the atoms. And that's when I say it teaches you something about yourself. If we're talking about lessons from dance, you learn something that you will never learn from writing it down, from talking to a friend about it, from going to therapy. I learned in that 5 seconds, I just learned something about myself of looking at it's like you're immersed in it and you get lost, and it helps you understand who you are and what you stand for. I know it's really deep, but your way you're going to be angry with the atoms is different from the way he would be angry, different from how she would be angry. And so you learn who you are by pulling from way, way deep down and having that emotional connection to what you're doing. So what I would say is there's, if you go on YouTube, I have a series called Freestyle Roulette. And it's basically that in a YouTube series, and you can watch people do all different kinds of prompts. If you search my name and freestyle roulette, or you can do movement meditations with me on YouTube. So like if you wanted to not even have to think at all, just try this with me. I'm on screen and I'm leading you in movement, and you just mirror the movement I do. So try it with me. If I go like this, you just mirror what I'm doing, and then if I go, and then maybe and then like your head drops. Yeah, exactly. You just danced. And you don't have to think at all. And you don't have to be good at picking up choreography. You don't have to have any flexibility. You just get to incorporate dance into your life without having to think. You could do it in your bedroom. You could do it at any time. So that's just some examples of how everybody can incorporate it into their life. Or come to an intensive. People travel for the intensives. I'll see you in class.
Galen, I think we're all so appreciative, but before we finish, can you show us how to drop the mic?
I don't want to actually try. I want to be respectful of this mic.
Galen, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Jake.